Many years ago, in the ancient city of Ado-Ekiti, there lived a young boy named Bode. Bode was a very happy child. He enjoyed the love and affection of his both parents, and he lived a happy, normal life. However, Bode's world came crashing down when his father, who was fondly called Baba Ijesha, passed on after a very brief illness. Bode became very withdrawn and spent his time alone, sitting by himself in his room. He no longer played with his friends, instead he would simply watch them play from the window of his room. Bode also began to drown himself in food, as that was the only thing that gave him comfort. Bode ate and ate all day. Bode had a very close relationship with his late father, so his father's sudden death had taken a toll on him. Bode's mother, Abosede, was very worried. She had tried speaking to her son several times, encouraging him, but all her words fell on deaf ears. Bode, on the other hand, was becoming very fat and obese because he ate too much and did not move around very often. One day, as Bode sat in his room and watched other children play just as usual, his eyes caught a beautiful young girl named Arolake. Arolake was a very beautiful girl and her smile was very captivating. Bode had never seen her before. Bode knew that a new family had just moved into the new house that was barely 3 compounds away from their home, because he had overheard his mother discuss with her friend about the new family. But what Bode did not know was that they had a beautiful daughter who was the same age as him. So, for the first time in months, Bode finally came out of his house just so he could speak to Arolake because he liked her very much. Abosede was surprised to see her son Bode outside. Even the children who were playing were all surprised to see Bode outside. Abosede spoke to her son and said, Bode, you came outside today. Thank God though, Abosede said, looking shocked, and then went ahead to hug her son. And just immediately, one of the children who were playing outside immediately pointed at Bode and said, "See, Bode is now very fat oh, see his big stomach." And they all busted out laughing and singing, "Fatty bum bum, Bode is a fatty bum bum." And Bode immediately ran back into the house, ashamed and crying. His mother tried to console him, but Bode kept on crying and weeping. He no longer attempted to go out. Until one day, Bode was in his room when his mother came to inform him that Arolake was in the parlor and waiting to see him. Bode was so happy and ran out to see her, and they spoke for hours, gisting and laughing. And so it became a norm. Arolake came regularly to visit Bode, and then they became very good friends. And soon enough, Bode began to leave the house. Bode and Arolake would hold each other's hands and walk around town together. And although other children still stared and laughed at him because he was obese, Bode did not care because Arolake liked him. So Bode and Arolake grew up becoming not just friends but lovers. Bode loved Arolake with everything in his being, and this became his greatest undoing. Arolake knew that Bode liked her, but she didn't like him that much because he was very fat. Although she still agreed to be in a relationship with him, but she only agreed out of pity and because she knew that Bode would go to the ends of the world for her. Arolake used Bode to run all sorts of errands. So during the weekends, when their parents had left for the markets, Bode would quickly hurry up with the house chores in his own house and then head over to Arolake's home to help her out with her own house chores. Bode would sweep and clean the whole of Arolake's house, while Arolake would sit in the parlor watching TV. Bode would also take all of Arolake's clothes and her parents' and siblings' clothes and wash them. Bode would still go ahead and wash all the toilets in the house before he leaves. And he would still cook food for Arolake and her family, the food that her mother had told her to cook for the whole family before they got back from the market. And in return for all this hard work, Arolake would simply peck Bode, and Bode would go back home feeling very fulfilled and established. Bode would spend his remaining day on his bed daydreaming and reliving the moment of how Arolake pecked him. Bode was head over heels in love with Arolake, not knowing that Arolake was simply using him. And things continued like this for a very long time. A few years later, Arolake and Bode had both finished secondary school, and because their parents could not afford to send them to the university, they had both decided to learn a trade. So whereas Arolake had gone to learn how to make beautiful hairstyles, Bode on the other hand had gone to learn how to repair vehicles with the hope that after serving his master for 7 years, he would be settled with a huge sum of money and then he could open his own workshop. Bode was very intelligent, so he picked up very quickly. His master Oga Femi liked him very much and taught him all that he knew. Arolake on the other hand was not too keen on learning her crafts. Rather, she always daydreamed of how she was going to marry a very rich man who would come and save her from all her misfortunes and poverty. So Bode and Arolake continued to date, even though Arolake was not emotionally committed to the relationship. Bode on the other hand went all the way out. Every day, Bode took lunch to Arolake at her shop, and each time Bode left, the other ladies who were learning hairstyling with her would tease her and say, Arolake, you are lucky oh. But this guy, Bode really loves you and will make a very good husband. He's very honest and kind too. Remy, Arolake's closest friend at the hairdressing salon, would say, husband ke, abeg, don't swear for me oh. How do you think that I, Arolake, see me now, a beautiful lady like me, would end up with that Bode? That one that is fat and round like Michelin tire. Besides, if he was not even fat and ugly, Bode is not rich now. Is it a mere mechanic that I will end up marrying? I know my father is poor, I agree, but I did not choose my father. But you see my husband, I will choose a rich man. I will choose a man that is wealthy as my husband. Besides, I don't even love Bode, and I've never loved him. I'm only with him out of pity, because I did not know how to turn him down when he asked me out. I did not want him to feel bad, because he's fat. But you see, Bode, me, I cannot marry him. Oh. I'm just, using him to pass time. That's all. Oh. Arolake replied sneeringly. Arolake, it's not fair. Oh. Do not mislead Bode now. If you know that you are not interested in Bode, simply tell him and let him go. That Bode is fat does not make him less human. Being fat or obese is not a sin. Bode is a kind person. Arolake, this is not fair. Oh. It's not fair, Remy said, looking concerned. Abeg, Remy, leave me, Jerry. I know what I am doing. Bode is simply the boyfriend for the season. When I am ready for a husband, I'll get married to a wealthy man, Arolake said proudly. And things continued like this between Arolake and Bode. Bode would always buy expensive gifts for Arolake with any little money that he saved up. Bode loved Arolake so much and wanted to make her his wife one day. Abosede, Bode's mother on the other hand, had been observing her son's relationship with Arolake for a long time now and was very worried. So one day she called her son Bode and said, Bode, what is really going on between you and this Arolake girl? Abosede asked, looking worried. Mama, you should know by now that I'm really in love with Arolake and I want to marry her as soon as my master settles me and I open a very big workshop. Bode said, smiling from ear to ear. My son, that girl Arolake does not love you at all. Oh. Please, my son, I do not want you to get hurt, but that girl Arolake, she's simply using you. Abosede replied, looking very worried. Mama, it's not true. You don't even know her that well. I and Arolake have been good friends since we were children, and she loves me just as much as I love her, if not more safe. She was there for me when we lost our dad. She was the one that helped me come out of depression. And instead of you to be happy that I want to marry Arolake, you're here discouraging me and saying bad things about her. I do not like it though. I don't like it, Mama. Bode replied as he walked out angrily. So Bode and Arolake continued their relationship in fun. A few years later, Bode and Arolake had grown into a handsome young man and a beautiful young lady. Bode had barely 1 year left to finish serving his master and get settled. Arolake, on the other hand, should have been settled by now and should have even opened her shop about 2 years ago. But because she did not take her training seriously, she was still working with her madam, while her mates, like her best friend Remy, had already finished learning work and now even had her own shop and had 2 girls working for her. One evening, Bode and Arolake decided to take a stroll. And then Bode looked at Arolake and said, Arolake, I want to get married to you. Please, will you marry me? I love you so much, Arolake. Bode asked, his face filled with excitement. Eh, Bode, I like you too, but how can you marry me now when you do not even have any money? Besides, you are still learning work. Oh. Arolake said grudgingly. Ah, no, do not bother your pretty head at all, my love. My boss, Oga Femi, will soon settle me. And with the money he uses to settle me, I would use a part of it to open a big workshop and use another part of it for our wedding. I will be able to take very good care of you. Don't even worry. Bode said reassuringly. So Arolake now, please, would you marry me? Bode asked again anxiously. Okay, I will marry you, Sha. Arolake replied reluctantly. Bode was so happy and he thanked her so much. Arolake, thank you for accepting my proposal, Bode said excitedly. Bode immediately went back home and excitedly told his mother that Arolake had accepted his marriage proposal. Abosede immediately screamed and said, Ah, Bode, marriage care. You should not be thinking of getting married now. For crying out loud, you're just finding your feet. And even if you want to get married, Arolake, not to Arolake now. She's not a good woman, no. That girl does not love you at all, oh. Abosede said, looking very worried. Mama, you have started again, no. I don't know why you have a problem with Arolake. Besides, Mama, my oga will soon settle me and I'll have more than enough money to marry Arolake and take care of her and still start my workshop now. I can do the two of them at the same time. Bode replied angrily. Arolake, on the other hand, had gone to visit her friend Remy, who now had her own salon, and said, can you imagine that Bode proposed to me? Arolake said, looking shocked. That's a good thing now, Remy replied, happy for her. Good thing, Ke. You know that I cannot marry that fat, obese, overweight man. So how is that a good thing? Arolake replied, oh yeah now, if you cannot marry him, break up with him now. Arolake, that man is a good man. It is better you break up with him than for you to get married to him when you know that you do not love him. Remy replied sadly, I'll try my best to. It's just that I pity him, that's all. Arolake replied. So a few months later, a handsome young man called Iben had arrived at Ado Ekiti and had caught the attention of all the young ladies. All the young ladies were talking about this tall, handsome young man that just came into their town. And Arolake was no exception. Arolake had seen Iben once and had fallen head over heels in love with him. Iben too loved Arolake despite the several women throwing themselves at him. Iben was head over heels in love with Arolake as well. Iben was a police officer and had only come to Ado Ekiti with his colleagues who had come for an event and would be returning soon. Arolake began to spend more time with Iben. They hung out at restaurants, they took long walks late at night, and soon tongues had started wagging. Everyone was already talking about how much time Arolake, who was supposed to be engaged to Bode, was spending with Iben, the new guy. And soon the news reached the ears of Bode. Bode was very heartbroken when his friend at the mechanic shop had told him that his babe, Arolake, was busy frolicking around town with Iben. Even his mother, Abosede, had heard the news too and called her son Bode and said, "Ah, Bode, shebi I told you that that girl does not love you, but no, you will not listen to me. After all, what does your mother even know? Now look at that your so-called girlfriend parading round the town with Iben. I told you and I'm still telling you that girl is up to no good. It is not late though to call off things." Abosede said, looking sadly, "Mama, please stay out of this. It does not concern you. Arolake would never abandon me," Bode said as he walked away angrily. Throughout that night, Bode could not sleep. He stayed awake thinking about all that his friends and his mother had said. His boss, Oga Femi, was going to settle him the following month. So although Bode had planned to open his mechanic workshop first, and then after like 6 months get married to the love of his life, but with Iben as a threat and looking around to steal Arolake, Bode decided that he was going to get married to Arolake first before Iben would steal her away from him. Unknown to Bode that Iben had already proposed to Arolake that same day and she had also accepted his proposal. So the following day, Bode went to see Arolake and said, "Arolake, let us get married as soon as possible. My boss is settling me with a sum of 7 million naira to start my own workshop. We can use a part of it to get married next week." Bode said excitedly, "Oh wow, 7 million naira? That's a lot of money oh. Okay, let us get married. But hope you would give me the 7 million naira to hold and manage. You know that you men do not know how to keep money." Arolake replied, smiling, Okay, since you're going to be my wife, no problem now. I will give you the money. This week, my boss is sending me to Ede for an outside job. So as soon as I'm back next week, we'll get married. But I will give you the money before I go." Bode replied excitedly. He did not bring up the issue of the other man, Iben, who everyone had seen Arolake with. Bode was just so glad that Arolake had agreed to marry him next week. So later that week, Bode collected the sum of 7 million naira from his boss as settlement for his 7 years of service and handed over all the money to Arolake. He also later traveled to Ede with the hope that on his return the following week, he would marry Arolake and they could begin their happily ever after. Bode, however, received the shock of his life when he came back the following week and Arolake was nowhere to be found. His mother told him that Arolake had gotten married to Iben in a small parlor wedding ceremony and had followed Iben back to the city. Immediately Bode heard what his mother said. He began to scream, "Arolake has finished me, oh, Arolake has finished me." Bode screamed, weeping profusely. Bode me, what happened? What did Arolake do to you? Bode me, wabami soroni, talk to me now, Bode. Abosede replied frantically. And then Bode went ahead and narrated how he had given Arolake all the money that his boss had settled him with to hold in preparation for their wedding, which was to come up the following week. "Ha, Bode, you have killed me. Kini, you mean you gave Arolake the whole 7 million naira? Bode, I did not train you to be this stupid nah." Abosede said, crying and weeping profusely. So Abosede and Bode continued to cry. In a matter of days, the news had spread round town that Arolake had jilted Bode and ran away with his money. Bode was so ashamed, he stayed indoors all day, weeping and crying. Remy, Arolake's friend, visited Bode frequently to sympathize with him. Her friend Arolake did not even confide in her that she had married Iben and eloped with him to the big city. So the news was a shock to Remy as it was to Bode. Arolake, on the other hand, had settled down in the big city with Iben. She was so happy to be married to him as Iben was tall and handsome. She even went ahead and gave Iben all the money that she had stolen from Bode, but did not tell him how she had gotten the money. Iben was very happy. And with Bode's money, Iben and Arolake rented a bigger house and were living together happily. Bode, on the other hand, was still wallowing in shame. But after a few months and with the help of Remy, Arolake's friend, Bode was able to come out of depression. So Bode went back to his former boss to work under him again, since he did not have the money to start up his new mechanic workshop. And so Remy and Bode became very good friends. 3 years later, Bode was still in this small town with no hope of ever starting his own workshop. And this got Remy very worried because she really liked Bode and they had already even started dating and were planning to get married. Arolake, on the other hand, was living her best life with Iben, her police husband, and had now even given birth to a beautiful baby girl for Iben. Remy was very worried for Bode. She wanted him to become financially stable so they could get on with their marriage plans. So the next Christmas, Remy spoke to her uncle, who was her late mother's only brother, about Bode's situation. And because her uncle loved her very much, he loaned Bode a whooping sum of 5 million naira without any interest and told him to pay up in the next 5 years. He also sponsored their wedding and relocated them to Lagos. Bode and Remy were very happy. They settled into their new lives very quickly. Bode had used part of the money to open a big workshop for himself and used another part to open a salon for his wife, and they were both doing very well. They were both very successful. And in the next 3 years, they had given birth to two bouncing baby boys and had been able to repay the loan that Remy's uncle had given him. So a few years later, Bode and Arolake had become a household name in their respective fields. Bode had become so wealthy that he could no longer be walking around without security. So one day he called the commissioner of police and asked them to send a police officer to protect him as he goes about his daily business. And so, the commissioner sent a young man named Iben to guide Bode. Neither Bode or Iben knew each other. It was only Remy who had recognized Iben as the man who Arolake had eloped with. So Remy informed Bode who Iben truly was. Bode was shocked. A surge of emotions flashed through Bode's body. He was filled with rage and anger at the same time. But they both decided to pretend that they did not know who Iben was, since he could not recognize them. So they decided to find out more about Arolake and what had become of her. So one day, Remy called Iben and said, "Iben, are you married?" Remy asked very casually. "Yes, Mao, I am married. My wife's name is Arolake, and we have two beautiful children now." Iben responded. "So what does your wife do to earn a living?" Remy asked. "Emma, she's a hairdresser, but she's not doing so well. She doesn't really know the job like that, but if she sees a better job, she would gladly accept it." Iben replied. "Okay, what if I employ your wife as a house cleaner and I pay her 250,000 naira? Would she like to work with me?" Remy asked. "Yes, thank you, madam. 250,000 naira is even more than my current salary. She will gladly accept. Thank you, madam." Iben replied excitedly. "Okay then, tell her to resume tomorrow," Remy said as she walked away. So the following day, Iben brought his wife Arolake, and as soon as she saw Remy and Bode, she greeted them saying, "Good morning, ma. Good morning, sir." Arolake said, smiling. And then Bode responded and said, "Arolake, how are you?" Bode asked, smiling. And immediately, Arolake recognized that voice and screamed, "Bode! Ah!" Arolake said, screaming, "It is Sir Bode and Madam Remy to you." Remy interjected quickly. Oga, my wife is sorry, sir." "Sorry, ma," Iben said, and then looked at his wife Arolake and said, "Mind yourself, oh. Don't you know that this is my Oga and his wife, eh? Mind yourself," Iben said angrily. And so Arolake apologized and said, "I'm sorry, sir. I'm sorry, ma." And with that, Arolake began to work for Remy and Bode. She would sweep, clean, and wash toilets. All the things that she made Bode do for her, she began to do same for Bode and Remy. One day, as she was washing plates, she began to cry and think about her life, about how she had defrauded Bode and also broke his heart. She wished that she had stayed with him. By now, she would have been the one that is an Oga's wife. She was angry with Remy for stealing her man, Bode. And then she thought of a way to deal with Remy. Arolake felt that if Remy was no longer in the picture, she could have Bode back. After all, she was his first love. And she felt that she still had Bode's mumu button. So one day, Arolake tried to poison Remy's food. However, when she was trying to put the poison in Remy's food, but they caught her red-handed. Arolake, you want to kill my wife? But they screamed, no, I'm so sorry, it's the devil's handwork. Arolake responded, crying, oh, so because I did not lock you up for stealing my money, Abi, now you want to kill my wife? You must be crazy. But they said angrily, and so? But they got Arolake arrested, not only for attempted murder, but also for theft. He also spoke to the commissioner of police to withdraw Iben from his service. Iben pleaded and pleaded, but all his pleas fell on deaf ears. So whereas Remy and Bode lived happily together, Arolake spent the rest of her days in prison. Hi besties, your girl Omalicha again. Thank you so much for watching my story to the end. So I'd like to hear your thoughts on this one. Do you think it's okay to date or get married to your best friend's ex under any circumstance? And do you think that Arolake deserved what she got? Please share your thoughts with me in the comment section. And please support your homegirl Omalicha by subscribing to my channel, liking my videos, and sharing with your loved ones. So now until I come your way again with more interesting stories. Bye.